Hi, I'm Andy. Recently, I've had an opportunity to speak with several leaders in the customer-centric space, and I believe there are some common traits that those leaders share that really helps them be successful. So let me break them down for you. The first one is they really have a strong understanding of how to get from the problem to the outcome, and the problem specifically being the customer problem they're trying to solve. That is a huge focal point for the lens that they look through. Does this opportunity, idea, piece of communication, whatever, does it solve a problem that the customer cares about? And then secondly, does solving that problem lead to an outcome that is a change in a behavior, but also perhaps a change in the emotion of how the customer feels about the brand or the store or the retailer, whatever. But that problem to outcome line of thinking really permeates every type of filter in terms of priorities and objectives and projects to get involved in. And I think it's a really common attribute that is super important. It's so easy to get distracted with shiny objects or new inventions and not have it really tie back to the core question, is this a problem the customer really cares about? I think the second thing that they do really well is they're good at sequencing change. They know how to keep pace with where the organization is, and they're not too far out in front. There are so many cool things you could be doing to delight customers with new technology, with some data and algorithms and data science, which can create a large investment for our company and can create quite a bit of process change. But the leaders are doing it well, have a good understanding of how to balance and harmonize keeping Friday's payroll going and inventing the future. Not getting too far out in front of where the organizational culture is, but at the same time pushing hard enough to drive real change. Those that are so zealous about being customer-centric that they lose sight of the organizational capabilities, the organizational maturity, and where the culture is in a company can often outrun the organization and just end up not being effective at really trying to drive change and often don't last very long. You have to be able to harmonize both skis of Friday's payroll and invent the future if you're going to be successful in this space. The third thing that I found to be common is they all seem to understand that the best ideas come from the front line, from the people talking to customers. That interaction between customer and colleague, customer and associate is so key, and that's where the real gold is. That very seldom do big ideas that change the game for customers come from the top. Most senior leaders are just too far away from it, and they're dealing with the law of big numbers and averages, which you lose that granularity about what's really going to work on that front line. And that's a key attribute. So what they do when they keep that in mind is they're really building an idea ecosystem to let those ideas flourish and be nourished, spot them, elevate them, support them, make sure they have the resources, and then quickly test and learn. That's a massive difference between a company that's really customer-centric and one that's trying to legislate customer happiness and experiences through a top-down mentality. The third thing that I think this is a very common trait is they understand that quantity drives quality. Often we try to get quality perfect before getting it to market, or think about a beautiful production if you're talking about content that really matters to customers. No, it's really quantity, because it's through quantity you get quick customer feedback and you're able to improve, and the quantity actually reveals how you can get quality to improve. It's a bit counterintuitive, and we often still think about making sure everything's perfect. Look, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you're really starting with trying to solve a customer problem that leads to an outcome that's relevant to them, they'll appreciate the fact that that's what's happening, and they'll recognize it. And they'll give you a bit of grace on the quality, and they'll give you feedback, and what you're looking for is feedback so you can continually go forward. It's all about listening to the customer and giving them enough to react to at pace so they can understand how you're doing and what you're doing. They'll give you the feedback, trust the customer, and they'll help you find the answers on where you can improve the quality. And I think the last thing that's really important is, to a person I've spoken to, they understand that you end up shipping your organization, and no matter what your ambition is in terms of trying to be customer-centric, you're not going to get very far if you're not employee-centric first. And so that idea that you ship your organization, you whatever you have in a culture and how much empathy you have for your own employees, that's what's going to come out in terms of how your people connect with customers. So almost everyone I've talked to really looks at the customer-centric problem as a people problem. Customers are people, and so are employees are people. And so you have to look at both as people. When you start looking at that without the labels of employee or customer and look at how do we serve people, you end up getting both customer and employee solutions working at the same time with the same values and the same mindset. It's impossible to have a customer-centric mindset that outperforms the employee mindset. So those two things have to be harmonized. And again, that's a common trait for those that are doing a great job at leading their customers. So I hope you found these 5 traits to be helpful guidance in terms of what to look for in building and becoming a great customer-centric leader.